past is related to, I will start first with COVID. I mean, if you think about many of our activities got stopped, I mean, during the winter, specifically winter 2021. So we have many activities that got stopped. So, I mean, that is one of the delays, probably largest delays that we have in terms of outreach. And then the second one is maybe we need to find ways of how we can be more effective of all the people that are producing research articles, finding ways of communicating. And I mean, I've seen many, Chuck mentioned many publications, so we need to find ways of seeing how these publications are going into practical knowledge and what are the applications of the publication. So it's something that we tend to kind of naturally, but in many situations it's good to do the exercise. I mean, if you have a new paper or new publication coming from the project, maybe we need to formalize a process, how we can start putting together like 1 or 2 page summary or something that is more formal, like saying an extension, just to differentiate a little more the outreach that we have with the RAIN project versus the rest. Oh, sorry. I can keep talking, don't worry. Okay. Fill in the gap. Yeah, I learned this when I was small. Soil health field day. So Carlos, I mean, was one of the main drivers on this. Many activities. I mean, one of the main things that we like, and then Carlos also mentioned this many times, is on the soil health, is the hands-on. So, I mean, Carlos was developing this kind of a cover crop systems, I mean, in field days. So, and we discussed with farmers, I think that was one of the most interactive sections. When we look at we look past and we think about what are the main activities and how we can engage farmers, I think that these interactive tools or extension tools are probably one of the main things that we need to continue doing. I'm trying to think about the numbers for that soil health field day. Remember?
For Cheston, it was like 80 or 85. Gutterman's was like 120 or something.
Okay. So, I mean, here are some of the pictures. And again, I would say most of the credit goes to Carlos and Chuck on putting this together. We're trying to support as much as possible. One of the most interesting discussions is when we look at the roots. Trying to think about diversification is a challenge. And in many situations, I think that when we start exploring different crops, and even just by doing this exercise is one of the things that we discuss on diversification. We also have this is one of the cover crop garden that also Carlos, I mean, usually, I mean, is the one in charge and putting it together. And then I'm trying to think about the one in Guterman. That was probably, I don't think that is.
So we have crop gardens for field days and farms. That one is at
That's out of the North Farm, yes. Yeah. I was trying, I recall the one that we have at the Gutermans, and then that is one of the highlights usually on these events. I think that basically many of the presentations that we have inside of the tent or even in this event here too, I mean, but I feel that when we get outside and we start looking at demonstrations and we discuss with farmers, that is one of the things that is more effective from our view. We already discussed about these on-farm research studies. Ray probably will not ask more because I know that he can do more, but we'll stop there. With Neville too, I mean, we started these projects, I mean, and discussed with Neville Brothers a couple of years ago about this possibility of doing on-farm studies. So these projects are implemented already by 2021. And then also this is, I mean, a little bit of Carlos, I mean, going around, I think that you have a picture there, Carlos is included. Went to visit with Flinner, I mean, visit with a group of farmers from Brazil, and then also with Justin. So a lot of activities, I mean, during the summer. This is something that we have also every year in Manhattan. So our Kansas Agribusiness Retail Association, so winter and summer. So here we are highlighting some of the summer events. In our session, we discuss a lot about crop phenology, and then most of the data is we mentioned that is coming from the RAIN project connected to the phenology side. Same is on the winter side. And these are some of the slides that Andres also added to this. So the K-State is really well known on doing this open house. I think that was April, May, usually. And then that's a photo of Sophia showing to kids how to measure soil moisture. So it's very popular. I mean, I can tell you that, I mean, we did it a couple of times probably in the first years, and it's a nice way to connect and to show to the community most of the outreach and things that we do at the university. So, and you might get, I don't know how many people going around campus, but it's a big event. Yeah. This is something that I also grabbed from Andres. I mean, that he shared a few. This is another program that is connected to science, technology, and engineers. So it's called Excite. And it's designed specifically for grades 9 to 12, everything connected to science, technology, engineering, mathematics. So, and I think that this, Andres, I mean, you can correct me, but we were teaching something on the book about water balance using Google Earth.
Yeah, showing the students the different patterns in soil moisture and what
Yeah.
I wanted to just
I did the same. 2 months ago, I was in a high school and we were basically using Google Earth for downloading images. And I have 2 or 3 guys that we are connected now. So, I mean, I think that the recruitment sometimes it starts in high school, and then we're doing already that. I mean, we looking at undergrads and trying to bring undergrads early in the process to train people. This is something that is already discussed from the industry side too. I mean, when I talk to industry, they say, well, anytime that you guys develop or train people, we need to retrain them. And then I mean, it happens at least on my side that anytime that I get a student, I need to retrain. So anytime that is coming from undergrads, I need to retrain them. So it looks like there is a process or a problem that we need to find a way how to avoid these retrainments and trying to see if we can work early in the process. Same on the industry side. I think that if we can work with industry before the students are hired, then there shouldn't be that problem of retraining people. Right? But it's a discussion for another day on how to change our university system. I have some ideas, and these are videos, social media, and then, I mean, I think that we're doing a lot. I just put examples, Dorivar presentations on the soil health side, so soil fertility. We also put tweets or rain. I took a few from rain too. I'm trying to show the event that we have at the Gutterman's family farms, and then Carlos giving a presentation last year, update on the rain event. So, I mean, we are doing a lot. I mean, I think that one of the main points that Chuck mentioned before is how we can make sure that it goes more fun into this rain, basically networking. And that was everything from our side. I think that we have, I mean, in fact, I was not able to put everything, so I got more slides, but I tried to keep it short on the KSU side, so the Oklahoma guys have more time.
I can adjust anytime we want to add more. I won't spend a lot of time. Just a few things listed on the accomplishments. Brian Arnall and Josh Lofton and I do this Red Dirt Agronomy podcast, and it's really good. We actually got that idea. We'd been wanting to do it for a long time, and then Jamie Lynn in the Southeast area at K-State, she has a podcast, and she was telling us how good it was as far as contacts. And I think, what do we average? 250 people listen to that every week or more? I don't know.
Yeah, within the first week of release, it's 250 to 400.
Yeah. And so as extension people, you think about like a field day, you have 200 people at a field day and 100 of them are OSU people. So that means you're getting to 100 people, and that's a hell of a lot of work. And this is just 3 of us sitting there 30 minutes talking about different things, whether it's timely topics or whatever. But we do address some of the things, you know, as far as dynamic cropping management practices, and going into the spring. You know, you're talking about a winter that was pretty rough and a spring that didn't get any better, and then a forecast that was a freaking disaster. And so a lot of time was spent trying to think about how you deal with that. And there's not much you can do, because you got to plant and you got to spend the money to put the crop in the ground. But we tried to discuss things that would limit the cost, but still provide some opportunity for success. And like Tyson, during Tyson's talk, it's fascinating. In this environment, the yield fluctuations are tremendous, and they have gotten worse. And I'm not sure why, but I've been around long enough that I remember the last drought we were in that was a historic drought beyond anything that was seen in the 1930s. And so like this winter crop school, I put together some data along with Randy Taylor about like cropping history over time. And we also had like Dayton Lambert, he did some work with Misha Manicherry looking at tillage interactions with the development of herbicide resistance and the economics of that. And that was good stuff. But I'll just give you a little quick bite. And I think I did this the last time, but 20 million acres of cropland. In 1930, we had the equal amounts of wheat, cotton, and corn being grown in the state of Oklahoma. And after 1930, we lost those other crops, gained wheat, lost 10 million acres up until 1980. And then we've lost 3 million acres since then. And we've lost 3 million acres of not erodible land, but all land classes across the board. So our productivity per acre is flat because we're not selecting the high quality, high productivity soil to continue to produce on. We're putting everything back to grass regardless of its productivity class. And so those are kind of some things that we're looking at. And then Brian's got his NPK blog, that sends out timely information. One thing, when you look at production, right now we're going to see all kinds of crops chopped and baled and ensiled or whatever they can do to feed cattle. And what an interesting thing, and a lot of what's done in this project deals with cropland, but we integrate and are interacting with the pasture land. And the only thing I can say that's positive about this current drought versus 11 and 12 is that we haven't grazed everything to the ground. And I think that's kind of how things developed. But we were talking about that today on the way up here, is that we don't see pastures grazed to the ground. And in 2011, that's what happened, particularly around Stillwater. And so I think there's some history of understanding of we've got to destock and bring down our cattle grazing pressure to a level that's profitable. It's also the increased prices, everything. A bale of hay, 1,500 pounds, Brian calculated on this blog, and then talked to county educators. There's $100 worth of cost in a 1,500 pound bale of hay. And if you know anything about the cost of hay and how much you're willing to pay to feed cattle, $100 of just cost is extremely high. And so you're going to have to get some money out of that on top of that to make it worthwhile to do. And then we have the Lahoma Field Day, Chickasha Field Day. At those things, I'll mention a couple of things they do. And Arnold, I know he has some on-farm demonstration and research trials. I've got some looking at tillage and soil health responses to tillage, trying to deal with some very challenging weeds. As far as the challenges listed here, the drought is my number one deal. It's exhausting to me because water and soil are in my title. And I drive around all over the state, and it's a disaster from one end to the other. And the forecast is not good. Discussion ideas, any ideas on how to increase total factor productivity during a prolonged drought would be good. I think that we'll probably see some of the largest indemnity payments in the southern plains that you could ever imagine coming out of crop insurance, because it's like this from Kansas, Nebraska, Colorado, Oklahoma, and western and eastern southern Texas. It's massive. And it hits like a ton of bricks in an environment where you're paying $1 for nitrogen, and you're at planting prices for soybeans $14, cotton's $1.40 or some outrageous number. So guys can hold on as far as profitability, or at least breaking even with insurance. But I was talking to an economist today, and it's going to be unreal. The numbers that are going to come out of RMA are going to be massive. And then some areas have been in drought for 2 years. The Panhandle's been in drought for 3 years, technically. There's some in the eastern Panhandle, they've been doing all right, but the western parts of the Panhandle of Oklahoma, Texas, and then Southwest Kansas have been hammered for the last 2, if not 3 years. And then most downstate areas, I think, and Brent, you've been pretty good up until June, right? But, and so I think if you look at county average yields and like precipitation events, I think we've been all right for most of the state, except for really in August of 2021, we started drying out, intermittent rainfall, and now we're cooking. So then, like I say, the winter crop school, we talked about forage production. Dayton had a student talking about herbicide resistance and tillage interactions and economics. And then, of course, we talk about cropping system management and fertility at that. And then at the field days, they talk a lot about varieties. Amanda and Misha aren't here, but they have a good presence there talking about varieties and intensive nitrogen and herbicide management, or not herbicide, but fungicide management, trying to increase performance of the yield. One thing Amanda did tell me is, like, in all these trials where we're spending more money to make grain, the yields were still superior under the intensive management. Is that jive with what you've seen, Romulo?
It is. I mean, it depends a lot on the site, right? Zero had well location with a single trial. Some of them had very good response.
Yeah.
But others that had already good profile for illegal. Yeah, full on.
Really?
We also do it on the side, right? Some of these trials and zero so dry.
It didn't matter. I mean, she had just, and this is just from going around with Amanda, but in Western Oklahoma, they had root rot in wheat under drought conditions, and it was some sort of dry root rot, right? Did you guys have that?
Yeah,
Dryland root rot. I never even freaking heard of it.
We had similar too.
Oh, is that right?
Really bad.
But you get these things that you very seldom see in these extremely dry conditions that are just a nail in the coffin type stuff, because it's like, this is dumb. Why would you have root rot during a drought? Doesn't make sense to me. But so I learned some stuff running around with Amanda during field days and stuff like that. But then, like, the social media, like I say, we've got a lot of sun-up videos, the podcast and this NPK blog. Probably do need to do a lot better of interacting with the Twitter accounts and stuff like that for this. And I put these, like, if you want to, add these to the list on the rain. I don't know if they've been added through the reporting system or not, but there's my people. Sun up questions or videos. But anyway, that's all I have. If you don't have any questions, we can get back on track.
So what are we gonna do about drought?
Pray to rain, man. I mean, that's the problem now. Everything that we could do to prepare had to have been done.
Yeah.
And those things are limiting costs by managing seeding rate, preseason fertilizer applications, and getting set up to limit costs while maintaining some level of productivity. Because, like, you could see it. And another interesting thing is, like, I was on a letter of intent with some folks from OU, because the guys at OU, and you've talked to Jeff Bersaris lately, but they're becoming more and more confident in their forecasting, particularly for the western tier counties. And out as you get in the high plains, it's very good with respect to the El Nino and La Nina cycles and all that. And based on the data that we saw during the Ogallala cap coming out of the Panhandle, there is a lot of opportunity to develop forecasting tools that won't, like, shut you down and say, well, you do not want to spend any money, but give you a probability scale. Is like, it don't look good, guys. I mean, it may be happy and wet and it's cool right now, but the August, they're going to turn the heat up on this deal. And they knew that. The guys at OU pretty well knew that we were going into this. Now, it's a 50-50 or maybe a 40-60 shot. But the idea with this grant is to get funds to go out and, like, really discover how good they really are.
Is wildfire an issue?
Wildfire,
Back on grass.
as far as acres going back to grass,
Well, yeah, the enhanced wildfire opportunities.
yes. You're seeing a lot of it on the news in the metro area, and there's some, firing up here and there, I'd be more worried about the non-traditional fire areas like eastern half of Oklahoma burning